Hello, everybody. Good morning. I am.
Good morning.
Everybody is muted, so if you do need to chat, you can unmute and then mute yourself. Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Awesome. Awesome. I am just trying to let everybody in here. I think we're good. A few things at the bottom of the Zoom, you'll see that there's a chat box. If questions come up or you have a question, you can just go down there and put it in the chat box, and I'll make sure I touch on questions at the end. Or you can make a note and then we'll open it up to chat at the end. I just don't want to get caught up in answering everybody's questions because I think it's about 30 to 40 minutes what I have prepared today. And yeah, yeah, I am trying to see if there's anybody else that needs to get in, and then we'll get started. I think we're good. Okay, so I am just gonna jump right in, and we'll go from there. Hi, I'm Jenny May. Welcome to my Beat the Bloat and Belly Fat webinar. We're going to be diving into where that whole weight shift muffin top after 40 comes from, why it happens. And before I get started, there's a lot of things that play into this. We're going to look at specifically estrogens, the estrogen family, and the liver and the gut, and how it all ties into the whole muffin top belly fat that shows up as we approach perimenopause and menopause. But there are lots of other factors. The hard thing about the body is we can look at one thing at a time, but it's hard to see how everything interplays, but everything does interplay. If you just joined, I made a comment about if you have questions to go ahead and put them in the chat box at the bottom. I won't see it while I'm presenting, but I will make sure I stop and go through the questions at the end. Okay, because I love questions. I'm a questioner. I like to ask questions. It's a big part of why I love what I do. I get to learn so much. So if you have questions, be sure to make a note or put them in the chat. So a little bit about me. If you don't know my story, if you were on the webinar last month, maybe you're gonna hear some of this again. If you've been a client of mine for a long time, you probably know some of this as well. But you never know; you might learn something new. My journey has been pretty involved. But I am a chemist. I worked in pharmaceuticals for 15 years making hormone replacement products. So basically making bioidentical estrogens. I went through menopause in my 20s. We'll call it like a false menopause. When you work in the lab and you make estrogens, you get exposed to estrogens on a daily basis. Not a super high level, but enough that it influences your hormones. And when I left that first job, it sent my body reeling. And I had the whole thing: night sweats, hot flashes, mood swings like you wouldn't believe, the weight shift, all of it. Went to the doctor. Doctors, the only solution they had is, well, we could put you on the pill, right? So they weren't very helpful. During that season of my life, I also competed in physique competitions, doing the whole bodybuilding, thing, wearing a bikini, trying to get your body fat nice and low. And a big part of being able to do the physique competitions and getting your body fat low enough to stand there in a bikini was controlling your estrogen levels, right? Because estrogen, when we go through puberty and your body makes more estrogen, you store more body fat. So estrogen in general makes the body store more body fat. And so having it low, regulating it, controlling my exposure, making sure I was eating all the right things so that my body could detoxify any extra, well, was really key in terms of the physique competitions. So it never made sense to me why the average woman gains 15 pounds during menopause. If menopause is a season when estrogen levels start to decline, then we should be able to lose weight easy. So it never quite added up for me. And in my 30s, I started to do a lot of research on why does that happen and how does that happen. So I'm 54 now, and so I've been doing this for almost 20 years full time. Has been 21 years if you count when I was doing it part time, working as a chemist and coaching women. So I have a pretty good understanding of how this all works. I wrote a book called Menopausal Fitness in You. I did take it off the market because I wrote it with a 30-year-old perspective, and that's very different than a 53, 54-year-old perspective. It's a very different season. So your perspective on everything is quite a bit different. But the science in the book is all spot on. It was just the attitude in the book that was off. So I've been coaching women around the globe on how to reclaim their health and figures after 40 since 2004, and officially 4 years post-menopause. And I can't say I mind it. So what today is about: why am I gaining belly fat? What can I do about it, right? Those are the big things. Why does that shift happen? What can I do about it? So we're going to dive into that. And we're going to start with why that fat storage shifts midlife. And that has a lot to do with just hormonal changes. Where that shift takes place is there are 12 menopause types. So there's 12 variations of how your hormones can change as you transition through that whole menopause season. When that starts is it's all very individual. So it's a very individual journey. For some people, that starts in their 30s. For some people, that starts in their 50s. Mine started in mid 40s, hit menopause 50, post-menopause. It was all very cut and dry. On the second time, the first time in my 20s, that was a disaster. And the actual menopause was much easier than what I went through in my 20s for sure. But basically, hormones shift midlife. It changes how your body stores fat. It changes how your body processes stress and how it clears hormones. Your liver and your GI system play a huge role in this process. The challenge with perimenopause, menopause is when it shows up, we're in our 40s and 50s, which means we have been enjoying life all through our 20s and 30s. Very few of us get to menopause and have not had extreme amounts of stress, have not over-partied or enjoyed too much sugar or had any processed food, right? Like our organs are taking the brunt of that. So then when you hit menopause and they have to kick up their responsibilities in terms of dealing with estrogens, they're overwhelmed. And it just starts this cycle of recycling estrogen so that people become just too much estrogen in their system, which contributes to this whole cycle of the belly fat. Part of that, right, as your estrogen levels increase, it affects your sensitivity to insulin, which is what regulates blood sugar, and cortisol, your stress hormones. Those two hormones specifically, right? Cortisol causes us to store more belly fat around the belly button. Insulin causes us to store more fat around the love handle. So our estrogen, nothing works alone. Our estrogens, our hormones affect all of our hormones, and our organs' ability to deal with all of that plays into this. So symptoms of too much circulating estrogen, right? So bloating, fluid retention, the body's answer to pollution is dilution. So the more waste, and some of that waste could be recirculating estrogens that our cells are making, the more water our body has to retain to keep that, to mitigate the effect of the pollution. So that's some of an effect of too much estrogen. Weight gain, especially in the belly, breast tenderness, or that shift where you feel like you were always a pear and then all the weight shifting to your chest and your tummy, then that could be a sign of too much estrogen. But breast tenderness, heavier periods, mood swings, anxiety, I don't know about anybody else, but that was a big one for me. Transitioning through menopause was an increase in anxiety, not so much mood when I was younger, but anxiety this time. Fatigue or low energy, brain fog, trouble sleeping, the hot, cold, night sweats, increased PMS or cycle changes, headaches, big one, migraines that show up out of nowhere if you've never had them, skin issues, thyroid changes. Most women will experience a blip in their thyroid as they transition through perimenopause to menopause. If the body's healthy and you're taking care of everything and supporting your body with the right foods and nutrition and lifestyle, the thyroid usually sorts itself out, not an issue. But sometimes perimenopause, menopause will certainly kick into thyroid issues. A big thing to remember is that symptoms are your body's way of asking for support, right? So if you have a dog or a cat, behavior is the only way your dog or your cat or your pet can communicate with you. Your body's way of communicating to you is through symptoms. And so symptoms often signal that something is out of whack and that it needs support somewhere beyond an acute injury. But so I want to chat about estrogen types because our world is full of them. So these are the ones that we make, right? So there's 3 natural types. And before I get too far into this, like there's, you got progesterone and DHEA, and there's a whole slew of intermediates and a ton of estrogens. We're just keeping it focused on the 3 main types of estrogen, not really touching progesterone. If you have questions on that, we can talk about that on the end. But the 3 main types are estradiol, that's the one we make, 20s, 30s, 40s, ovaries produce it. It's the one that we're accustomed to. Estrone is a weaker estrogen, more inflammatory. It is dominant after 40, after menopause. It is our primary source of estrogen. It's made in your fat cells, right? So as you transition through menopause and the body starts to have less estradiol, your body will start to make more estrone. You still need some level of estrogen, and your fat cells become the dominant source. So that's part of where that shift into more weight around the middle comes from. So it's not always your body working against you. A lot of times it's your body doing the best it can with what it has. Estriol is the one that is mostly present in pregnancy. What adds to this challenge is our external estrogens. Our environment is full of it, right? So we have xenoestrogens, which are estrogens in our environment. We absorb them either through our skin, through inhalation, through our foods, and they are not, they act like estrogen. They bind to estrogen receptor sites and they add to this whole process. 20 years ago, for men, one of the dominant hormone imbalances was insulin. Today, estrogen is a problem for most people. And yeah, I mean, you'll see it all the time. So it is a growing problem. Xenoestrogens don't show up in blood work, but they still bind to estrogen receptors and they still create havoc on the body in terms of bloating, mood swings, heavy periods, belly fat, and so on. There's quite a bit of science on them and how disruptive they are to your metabolism in your body, but we'll leave it at that. Then we have our phytoestrogens, which are plant-based ones. I'm a huge fan of plants. Everybody could eat more plants. All your micronutrients that are key are in your plants. So I'm full support of plants. Challenge today is that we're pushing plant-based and we're pushing processed plant foods, right? So we're pushing Impossible burgers and plant-based burgers that are made from soy products. And soy acts like estrogen in the body. You'll also see a lot of people promoting flax, and flax has a lot of great benefits, but flax can also act like estrogen in the body. If you're a huge beer lover, hops also like estrogen in the body. So these are all weak forms of estrogen, but they still take up space in your body and bind to your receptors like a regular estrogen, and your body still has to deal with it. So it adds to the total load. So you've got your body's own natural production that change as you go through menopause and you start to make more estrogen in your belly fat. Then you have what we're taking in from our environment. And then you have what we're taking in from our foods. All of this becomes a bit of a problem if the liver and the gut can't keep up with the whole detoxification process. And it just builds up this extra more and more estrogen circulating in our system, which then leads to things being out of balance. I guess I'm not quite done. We've got dairy. Dairy is an interesting one. Dairy is not like a source of estrogen, like a plant-based or a xenoestrogen, but dairy does contain small amounts of real animal estrogens. And I will tell you that in working with thousands of women, when I take dairy out of the diet, their body can burn fat more effectively. Dairy is somewhat ultra processed today. I'm not anti-dairy, but everything in moderation, right? So dairy is somewhat ultra processed today, and most people, when they hit their 40s, 50s, they have some sort of dairy sensitivity, which then impacts the gut. And the GI system is responsible for determining whether those estrogens get eliminated or recirculated. And if the GI system is struggling or the gut biome is off, then everything just keeps getting recirculated. On top of it, inflammation is one of the biggest things that causes people to stay stagnant, like they just can't make their weight change. And dairy is a big contributor to that. So I have often seen that when we take dairy out, everybody's body kind of improves. So kind of just to sum up what causes excess estrogen so that someone is more estrogen, we'll call it dominant, even though I don't really love that word, but excess estrogen. It isn't just about having too much estrogen, it's about how your body clears it. So if your liver or your gut isn't functioning well, estrogen gets recycled instead of eliminated. And then you add to that your mimickers, like your xenoestrogens from plastics, pesticides. You get a new carpet or a new car and you inhale that new smell, right? A lot of times that is a form of xenoestrogens. Hand sanitizer, compounds in hand sanitizers act like estrogens. And so they act like estrogen in the body. And then we're in a season where our ovaries are making less. And so now your body fat is making more estrogens. So specifically about estrone, which becomes our dominant estrogen that our body makes after perimenopause, menopause, we make it in our fat cells. So again, some of the shift that happens to having more body fat, more specifically belly fat, is your body trying to make its own form of estrogen. Your body really never works against you. It really is only trying to do the best it can for you based on how it can function and what we're providing it. So this kind of creates a cycle because the more body fat you have, the more estrone you can make. And then the more body fat you have, and then the more estrone you can make. And then if your GI system and your liver system can't get rid of the excess, it's going to store it's going to store that stuff back in your fat cells as well, which then keeps this whole recycling process happening. So it all just keeps getting amplified. And then you go to the doctor and they test and they're like, oh, well, we'll add in progesterone to bring things back into balance because they might show up as having too much estrogen or their progesterone being too low. But progesterone is predominantly a pregnancy hormone. So people will go on that just in an effort to try and stop the weight gain, and they'll gain even more, right? Because progesterone helps you gain fat. So, and I'm certainly not against HRT in any way. There are a lot of benefits to it, but there's a lot you can do with your body naturally to help support this process and bring things into a healthier balance, because the body does know how to exist and thrive after menopause, 100% for sure. So the midlife estrogen loop, right? So we got environmental estrogen, our own estrone, right? The liver's got to detoxify all that. It's swamped, can't quite do it. So you have poor detox and slow clearance. The gut reabsorbs the estrogen instead of getting rid of it in your bowel movement. So now it's recirculating. So you store more belly fat, and then the process repeats. So now you have more fat, and you're going to make more estrone, and it just keeps cycling through. And this is the loop that we want to end. So where it starts with the liver, right? The liver clears used estrogen and environmental estrogen. The liver is also responsible for fat burning. If you were in the webinar last month, I think I kind of touched on that, like how important the liver is in terms of being able to clear toxins, but also be able to burn fat. Like a lot of times if we're gaining weight, we want to lose it. And in order to do that, the liver wears a lot of hats, probably the most fat of any organ. And we really need to support it. So it leaves too much estrogen circulating, signals the body to store more fat. It can't burn fat. Belly fat increases, you make more estrogen, and the cycle continues. In terms of the GI, the estrogen, which is part of your gut biome, that's specifically your bacteria and your enzymes that help your body, your GI system, right? It is the brain that determines whether the estrogens get recirculated or whether they're going to go out in your waste. If the estrogen is off, then the body just keeps recirculating. You need that part of your gut biome to be healthy and good so that you can get rid of the excess estrogens, especially the environmental ones, because they wreak the most havoc. So the poor gut function leads to estrogen being reabsorbed. The recirculated estrogen worsens the bloating, the retaining of water and belly fat. And then a lot of times people struggle with constipation during that whole perimenopause season. So now there's even less clearance. And then you have the whole environmental part where they bind to the estrogen receptors, act like real hormones, but they're really not. And they're just adding to the whole clogging of your detox pathways. So, and it just triggers more and more fat storage. So what to do about it? That's what we're all here for, what to do about it. So, and I have this all broken down on that one-page handout, which you'll get in an email after this. But step one is support the liver, right? And we start with cruciferous vegetables. And I often hear when I start working with somebody, they're like, well, cruciferous vegetables give me gas. So cruciferous vegetables are your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. When I was in my 20s, I used to make smoothies with Brussels sprouts. Not delicious, but they help me get rid of the extra estrogens for sure. So a lot of people say they can't eat cruciferous vegetables because it upsets their GI system. So that right there is a red flag, right? So now we already know the gut is struggling. Because if you're getting gassy after eating cruciferous vegetables, then your body can't break it down and it can't absorb the nutrition. So you already know that your estrogen detoxification pathway is blocked. So that's a problem. Protein is huge. Protein goes beyond the fact that every time you eat it, you increase your metabolism 30% and building muscle. For me, protein, especially being a chemist working in the labs, having had all of the exposures that I have had, protein for me, the number one reason to eat it is and consume enough of it is to detox, right? It without enough protein, your liver can't take those toxins, whether that's excess estrogens or environmental toxins. Like if you take a hot shower in the morning and you're on city water, that chlorine becomes vaporized. If you don't have a filter, you inhale that. You need to get that out of your body. That's the liver's job. Protein is what allows your body to bind that into forms that it can push it to your gut and you can get rid of it in your morning bowel movement. So protein is huge for those things beyond the muscle and the metabolism. For me, it's always been about toxins. A lot of people are just carrying toxins around in fat cells, not necessary. Hydration, also very important. Again, we touched on the body's answer to pollution is dilution, retain more and more water. The less water you consume, the more water your body's going to retain. Like you need to have that water system just flushing through. If you've got to get your water in every day, 365 days a year, that's a big one. And that's the one that really holds people's weight hostage is they're just not drinking enough water. So that one's still key. And then alcohol. And I hate this because right when you need a glass of wine the most is when it's the most damaging. It absolutely wreaks havoc with your liver. It wreaks havoc specifically with the whole estrogen detoxification pathway. It really ends up just stored around your waistline. It increases inflammation and belly fat, and you become 100 times more sensitive to it perimenopause, postmenopause than prior. And I hate that because it just feels so unfair. Right when you want the drink the most, it's the worst thing you can do for your body. So you really want to reduce or cut back on alcohol quite a bit. It's a big deal. Supplements I like for the liver, right? I'm a huge fan of nutrition, and supplement the diet, but sometimes you need supplements to kind of get over that hump so that you experience the effect and then get the result and then get the motivation to keep going, right? A lot of times we make a couple changes, don't see results, so we just alienate and go have the glass of wine. But the thing about supporting the body through food and supplements is they support your natural metabolism, so they take time and consistency to see results. But supplements I like. DIM, which is diindol methane, that is the compound that is in your cruciferous vegetables that helps your body detoxify estrogens and keep them safe, push it into safer pathways versus estrogens becoming more likely to go down a cancer path, cancer or disease pathway. Milk thistle supports the liver cell, helps it repair, helps the liver specifically. So just toxic in general, milk thistle is great for that. Calcium deglucarate is important for estrogen in terms of preventing it from being reabsorbed into the gut and continued back recirculated. It helps your gut bind it and get rid of it. Magnesium, you're also going to see with the gut. Magnesium is a big one. Most of our soils are deficient in it, and it plays a huge role in supporting your phase 2 liver detox. Magnesium plays a huge role in just about every system in your body. Almost all of us need some support in there on some level. I do not recommend magnesium at the grocery store. You always want to look at your labels, right? So magnesium here, I just wrote magnesium, but like a magnesium glycinate would be good. A magnesium oxide you can't absorb, so I would avoid those completely. Step 2, we need to move the estrogen out. We need to get it out of our bodies. So we need fiber. A high fiber diet has been shown to double fat loss in pretty much everybody. That's a big deal. I do understand that sometimes by the time we hit menopause, fiber does not always like our GI system. And so if that's an issue, that's something that we need to work around. But you want fiber because it binds to the used estrogen. It basically binds to any toxins that your body is trying to get rid of, as well as bad cholesterol. There's not enough fiber in your system for those toxins to bind to. It's just going to be reabsorbed or stored in your fat cells. So high fiber for sure. And then a daily bowel movement, because that's how you're going to get it out. If your body was able to, if the liver was able to have enough protein to bind it, send it to the gut, and the gut's able to get it out, it's going to come out in your bowel movement. So you want to make sure you're having 1 or 2 a day, and that we're keeping all of that moving well. That's a big deal. And then fermented foods, that's going to support the gut biome. That helps get rid of the excess estrogens. I have sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, Greek yogurt, kombucha, pickles. What I have found with a lot of people is that they like the ones that are sweetened. And if you add the sweetener to it, now you're killing off the good bacteria and you're feeding more of the bad. So if you're going to use fermented foods, try and get it plain, unflavored, right? That's very important. So gut support supplements, coming back to the fermented foods, which is your bacteria probiotic. I don't like anybody to stay on supplements long term, right? You want to support a system, get it healthier, and then kind of move away from it. Like you don't want your body to become dependent on it. But probiotics can be very helpful. If you do a probiotic, definitely suggest one that's specific to women. That's going to be more helpful in terms of getting rid of the extra estrogens and keeping everything healthy. There are some good ones out there. If you're new to probiotics, I wouldn't go buy the very best one that has the most strains and 100 billion, you know what I mean? Because you're going to overwhelm your system. I always like people, if they've never taken one before, start with a line for women or a line for bloating. Don't cheap out on it. Supplements are not regulated. They can easily put in dead bacteria and sell it, right? So Align seems to work well for most people. I specifically like Designs for Health, which is a physician brand. And in that one-page guide, there's a link to all my favorites in there with the discount. So you can see that. But a good probiotic is helpful. Magnesium glycinate, again, so it helps with detox and helps with regular movement. And then digestive enzymes. If you're somebody who eats food and gets gassy, then we need to figure out how to support your gut so that you're breaking down the food and absorbing the nutrition. If you're eating food and developing gas, that means that food's not breaking down and it's just fermenting in your gut. And if your GI system is busy dealing with that, then it only has so much capacity, right? Think about how much you can get done in a day. You don't want to overwhelm it. So the digestive enzymes can help you actually break down the food you're eating so that you can absorb the nutrition, get your gut biome better, get rid of the extra estrogen. But most people I talk to have some level of GI thing, food sensitivity, IBS, all of it, or liver in our gut. They just take the abuse of everything, especially stress. Step 3 is to cut down environmental exposures, to be really aware, right? Reduce your dairy, always organic dairy if you do dairy, and reduce your processed soy. So check your labels. If you're buying a protein bar and it has soy protein in it, that's a processed soy. That's going to add to the whole estrogenic activity. It's ultra processed. It's going to add to inflammation. It's just going to make it harder for everything to lose. It's just going to result in more belly fat. Swap out your plastics. I'm a huge fan of frozen vegetables. They don't spoil, but if they get cooked in the microwave, I prefer to just take my frozen and steam them in my steamer. But if they get cooked in the microwave, they come out of the bag and go into glass, and they're cooked in that. Check your skincare, your lotion. I have a sheet that you'll get in the email after this as well that kind of goes through a checklist of your environmental things to look at and what to swap to. The environmental working group, they have you can always check your products on their website. They have approved products on there, have a good list of things. Safer cookware, avoid the nonstick coatings and cheap metals. Invest in your cookware. You're cooking your food, which is supposed to make you healthier in it. You don't want to be leaching things out of your cookware. So stainless, ceramic, those are always good. Cast iron, make sure it's a quality cast iron. And organic produce when possible. I know the grocery store is crazy expensive right now. I live by that Dirty Dozen list. I always check that Dirty Dozen list, which is also on the environmental working group, to see what's on there and make sure I buy those Dirty Dozen organic. The Clean 15, I might buy normal. And then peanut butter and coffee should also be organic. They are loaded with pesticides. So you want to stick to organic with the Dirty Dozen, coffee, peanut butter. And then step 4 is this comes back to the cortisol and insulin. I could repeat this whole thing with just a focus on insulin, blood sugar, and then we could repeat it again with the whole thing just on cortisol, because those things play a huge role in this. But step 4, protein at breakfast, really big deal. The perfect breakfast is usually what most people have for dinner, right? Salmon at breakfast or something like that, protein rich, is really ideal. The first meal of the day sets up your hormones for the day. So you want to make sure you have a high protein breakfast. Evening routine, you want to have a calming nighttime routine that helps lower cortisol that doesn't involve a glass of wine, something that helps you regulate sleep and kind of develop a routine so your body knows that it's bedtime, and it will help keep your cortisol in check too. And then strength training, that reduces cortisol. That's huge, right? We lose muscle so fast after menopause. You really want to be intentional about that. At least 2 sessions a week of strength training to keep that muscle there. If you can do 3 or 4, great. Doesn't need to be over the top. We don't need to be doing boot camp workouts and all craziness, because our joints and everything are going to be a little bit different. But there's nothing, you can certainly safely continue to maintain the muscle that you have and build muscle. Oh, I don't know if you can hear my dog barking. So bringing it all together, your body can absolutely rebalance. You can absolutely lose belly fat after menopause. You just have to really want it, and you have to be willing to make the lifestyle changes and kind of work through that. But you have to support the liver, improve gut function, reduce your exposures, manage stress, maintain muscle, and all of those things can stack up to reducing belly fat. It is absolutely 100% doable. I have lots of clients that do it. So next step, if any of this resonated with you or you have questions and you want to figure out how to personalize it to you, you can book a complimentary discovery session with me, and we can have a chat and kind of work through where you're at, where you've been, where you're at, where you want to go, and figure out what that next step is. A lot of times with the body, it's like trying to see the forest through the trees. You lose your path and then you have no idea how to get back on. You can't overhaul everything at once. It's kind of what's the most limiting step, fix that, and then keep stacking on top of it. I am just giving you guys a heads up for this. I haven't let anybody know yet, but I am doing a 28-day midlife reset in January. It's January 5th to February 2nd. It's 28 days. We are going through it a group. It's open to 25 women. I'm keeping it capped at 25 so that I have time to help everybody personalize it. It will include the supplements that you need. I don't like a ton of supplements because if you throw the kitchen sink at the body, it has no idea what to do with it, right? So you want to be very intentional with what you're doing so that it uses the changes you're making for the result that you want versus we have our priorities, the body has its own priorities, and we don't really know what that is. And so you want to be intentional with what you're doing so that you produce the effect that you'd like. But anyways, so week 1, we're just addressing the gut. Week 2, the liver. Week 3, the adrenals. Week 4, kind of how to pull it all together. 28 days is enough time to start to change your internal chemistry. Once you have it all put together, you can carry it forward from there. But anyways, just to let you know about that, that will be in a link in an email as well. And yeah, that's it. For right now, I guess the one big takeaway, your body is always communicating. Your body's always communicating. It really isn't trying to work against you. A lot of times we just want to have fun and enjoy life and not have to worry about it. We just want our body to do what we want it to do. But again, your body is always working for you. It's never working against you. It's always on your team. If you want it to be different or you're not liking something about it, then it becomes more about how can you support it. So yeah, so I'm going to hit stop share. And I just wanted to show you the sheets really quick. These are going to be what gets in your email. Give it a second to pop up. So we have the environmental estrogen detox, right? So you're going to get, this is the checklist of the things, the changes that to look for in terms of how to remove the excess estrogens from your life. So you'll get this and you can kind of go through and see if there's any areas that you need to address. And then the estrogen balance action steps, right? So this kind of rehashes what I went through in that webinar. You'll also get in this webinar, you'll also get the replay. So if you want to go back and listen to anything, you can. But it kind of just touches on everything really quick, goes through step 1, 2, 3, and 4, has the link to the supplements that I like for Designs for Health. Designs for Health is not the only quality supplement out there. There are lots of them. You just want to make sure that they are coming out of USP, CGMP, and are tested facilities, and not someone just throwing something in a capsule and selling it to you, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And then the link to the discovery session if you want to book them. All right. So those will be in your email. And I'm going to hit stop share and we'll answer any questions. Oh, and so I'm just going to go through the questions that I have in the chat. And then if you have any others, you can certainly ask. But the first one was, can you please clarify again which magnesium we should and should not be using? You should not be using magnesium oxide. So if you buy a multivitamin or you're looking at the grocery store and you see something that has magnesium oxide, the very cheap form of magnesium, but you can absorb it. So anyone who's throwing that in their supplements, they're just trying to sell you something, right? They're not really concerned about whether or not it produces an effect. Magnesium glycinate is a form to take. You can look for that. Magnesium bisglycinate is good for people who can't sleep. That is definitely one, but then there are several different forms. Magnesium malate is another form. Kind of depends on what you absorb. But those are the two. Magnesium malate, that's one if you struggle with a lot of cramping and muscle type stuff. Magnesium bisglycinate is good if you can't fall asleep. So, and what air fresheners? What do I recommend? Air fresheners, I actually get the oils, the organic oils, uh, essential oils, right? The essential oils. And I have, to be perfectly honest, I don't use a ton, 100%. I really don't. I do take the essential oils and I put it on the filter in my vacuum cleaner. And so when I vacuum, it kind of adds a little bit of air freshening. And I have a dog who sheds a lot, so I vacuum, pretty much daily. But to be 100% honest, I don't use a ton. Yeah.
Jenny May, I'm next. I have one on supplements. You'll see it in there.
Oh,
Okay, so I know the supplements I'm supposed to take and I'm taking them. However, I'd have noticed because I have like 5 right now. I honestly feel like every morning when I look at that, I'm looking at my grandfather, who's now way long passed away, with his list. And then I'm like, gulp, gulp, gulp. And I'm annoyed at it and I don't like to do it. I do it. Can I just start spreading them out like 2 in the morning, 2 at noon, 2 at night, so I don't feel like I'm waterlogged and just this? Does that make, can I do that?
you can do that 100%.
Okay.
100%. Yes.
Okay.
And we
At
can
least to
also,
start until, because right now it's like it's a mental thing at times where I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do it, but
I
I
hear
do
that.
it.
I hear
Okay.
that. I hear that. Yeah, so you could spread them out. We could also look at powders where you could add it to a smoothie or you could drink it. So there
Okay,
are
we
a
can talk
lot.
offline about that then.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
lots of different options there. Good
Okay.
question. Good. And but back to your five. Like five is my rule. Never more than five, right?
Hmm.
Supplements.
Hmm.
Because if you start having like 10 or 12, like again, you want to keep it, you want the supplements that are going to make a difference. But if
Hmm.
you start to get beyond five, now your body's just going to not necessarily know what to do at all. And your body
Yeah.
has to, but your GI system has to break it down. So that five rule came from a workshop a while ago with, I forget the doctor's name, but that's a clinical number. Like you should never be more than five supplements.
And to me, I mean, it is rather an easy button. Fine, 5 supplements. That's not the mental part. It's I feel waterlogged because some
Yeah.
of them are bigger. And I'm like, this is just feels like I'm bloating myself trying to get the pills down and then I have to eat breakfast. So, okay.
Yeah. So spread them out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good for falling asleep is another question. The magnesium bisglycinate is good for sleep. Sleepy time tea is good for sleep. Actually, just forming a routine, like as silly as that seems, like having a bedtime routine. Just because we're adults doesn't mean our body doesn't still function like a child. You know how kids have feeding and bedtime routines? We actually still need them. We need consistent feeding and bedtime routine, like routines. Our body's just a mammal. It's just like a dog or a cat. We just happen to live in it. And it still needs that same level of care. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of separate my body mentally. Like I know I live in it, but I kind of treat it like I would my dog or my dogs or anybody else and kind of have a regimented routine that I stick with. Um, I got another question. It has magnesium oxide and magnesium gluconate, which I'm not sure. That one I would need. Benita, I don't know if is that
Yeah, here I am. Yes.
okay.
Yes, I'm looking at the ingredients, and this is a Nature's Bounty. It's just from the grocery store, which is probably not the best. But yeah, so the label says magnesium 400 milligrams, 95% as magnesium oxide and magnesium gluconate is
Yeah.
what.
So
So this.
yeah, so I don't know how much of that you'd be
Mhm,
absorbing. Like it doesn't tell
mhm.
you what that percentage of each is.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
so I would be a little skeptical, honestly.
Okay.
Like
Okay.
if like usually if it has magnesium oxide, I'm like, yeah, no, no, thank you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Um,
Okay. All right. It's almost gone, so I'm gonna go and buy something different today that has doesn't have the oxide. Do you have a brand you recommend?
I like the Physicians brand. So I like the Designs
Okay.
for Health, which you'll get a link to that and it will have the
Okay.
magnesium in the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Any other brand is escaping me right at this moment.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's
That's-
kind of funny. Supplements, you always have to go and check because even when something starts out good, a lot of times, like something, a raw material will be hard to get. And so they'll compromise it in order to meet production and then change the label. And
Mhm.
again, it's not tested for quality control. So, I mean, you have to kind of have to always be checking.
Gotcha.
But if you
Okay.
have, yeah, I'm always happy to check.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah. What should you do if you can't sleep and have muscle cramps during the night? That's a tough one. That's kind of and it depends on what could be causing cramping, right? So magnesium malate is the magnesium that I like for cramps if it's coming from a magnesium deficiency. But cramping can also come from your nervous system. It can also come from tissues just being too tight and your body's trying to relax and unwind. And then you kick up when the tissue tries to relax, it cramps. Um, so that's a loaded one. I don't know that I have a quick fix for that other than making sure, maybe an electrolyte mix where you're getting making sure you're getting the sodium, potassium, magnesium consistently. Um, but that would be one if we wanted to chat about it offline. That would be probably a good there. Does that help, Christine?
Yeah, thanks. I was taking magnesium and I'm confused with all the different magnesiums. I was like told to take one for the muscle cramping in my legs and take another one to try to go to sleep, trying to drink more water. Nothing really seems to be helping with any of it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, cramps can be tough if it's not just like, especially when it's sleeping, because that can be more nervous system related and your body's trying to unwind and it cramps instead. And so
Okay,
I don't have a solid answer for that. I wish I did.
okay.
I am working on it, but I don't have a solid answer for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Good. Everybody take away something, I hope. Thumbs up. All right. All right. Well, then I will shoot off that replay with not, yeah, I'll shoot off the email with the attachments. So you have those one-page sheets. If you want to chat, the discovery session is totally complimentary. Take advantage of it. And yeah, I think that's it for today. When I have the replay up and ready to go, you'll also get a separate email for that. So thank you all for spending your Saturday morning with me. I appreciate it.